Now that we know the Black Flag remake is essentially right around the corner. Yeah, never mind. Just ignore that. I wanted to go back in time to AC4 and revisit the screen time of probably the worst and most forgettable master assassin of all time. Not a recruit, not an initiate, a master assassin of the Assassin Brotherhood. And yet, this dude is dead before most players even realize who he was. Today, we're gonna talk about Duncan Walpole, a character whose rank raises a pretty concerning question. How the hell did somebody like this ever make it to the top of the Assassin Order? First, I think it would be nice if I gave you some background information about this guy. At least a little bit more information than what the game gives you. Duncan Walpole was born in England in 1679 and came from a fairly respectable background. He was even related to Robert Walpole, often considered Britain's first Prime Minister. Early on, Duncan joined the Royal Navy, hoping for status and advancement. That didn't last very long. His temper and inability to work under authority stalled his entire career. Later, while working for the East India Company, he encountered the Assassin Brotherhood. And unlike the Navy, the Assassins actually recognized his talent. Duncan was capable, skilled, effective, and over time, he rose through the ranks all the way to Master Assassin, which in hindsight, might have been the Brotherhood's first big mistake. By 1714, Duncan's entire attitude had changed. He clashed repeatedly with the mentor of the British Brotherhood and grew increasingly frustrated with what he saw as a lack of recognition. Rather than seeing the creed as a guiding philosophy, Duncan began to see it as a limitation. He wanted more wealth, more influence, more acknowledgement, and eventually, he just decided that the assassins weren't gonna give him that. Bro, what the hell? What a cocky guy. So what the hell does this guy do? He betrays them. Duncan secretly contacts Governor Torres, the Templar Grand Master of the West Indies. In exchange for status and security, he offered him detailed maps of assassin bureaus across the Caribbean. And he also offered a vial of precursor blood, one of the most valuable artifacts in existence. And this is what all of Black Flag's story revolves around. Now, this wasn't a moment of hesitation or desperation. It was a calculated decision, which makes it all the more strange that the Brotherhood ever trusted him at this insanely high level. Duncan got on a ship, the HMS Intrigue, heading to Havana. But things went sideways very fast. The ship is attacked by pirates led by Abel Brahma. Duncan kills the captain in front of Edward, but the ship's ammunition magazine just explodes, wrecking both ships and stranding him. He survived, barely, and washed ashore injured. And that's where he meets Edward Kenway, a pirate with zero connection to the creed. Despite his rank and experience, Duncan immediately underestimated him. He spoke too freely, lowered his guard, and failed to recognize the risk. When he tried to kill Edward, his pistol misfired due to wet powder. Later, when it finally worked, it still wasn't enough. Bro, you chase this guy down as Edward, do a single counter kill, and he's dead. Bro, they could have at least tried making him somewhat of a boss fight, but they didn't give two shits about the guy. There's zero challenge to his death. Duncan Walpole, a master assassin, was killed by a man who hadn't even heard of the creed yet. Bro, you killed this guy in a tutorial. That's insane. When Edward searches Duncan's body, he finds assassin robes, letters from the Templars, and detailed intelligence. Edward takes Walpole's entire identity and uses it to infiltrate the Templars, an act that ultimately pulls him into the Assassin-Templar conflict. In a way, Duncan Walpole doesn't just die early, he accidentally hands the entire story of Black Flag to somebody else. Damn, if you really think about it, at the end of his life, Edward stole Duncan's acknowledgement, the thing he wanted the most from the Assassin Brotherhood, the thing he betrayed them for. Dude, this guy lived a very sad life. I actually remember seeing a tweet a while back, I believe from fellow YouTuber Hidden One, about the original scrapped sequence that was supposed to be in the game. Duncan was actually never supposed to be killed by Edward. Instead, he was to bleed out and die on the island right then and there as Edward searched for water to help him out. I'm not gonna lie, although this would have took a little bit more time to do, this would have been the better option. Well, Duncan's reputation wise, that is. They could have made it so perhaps we have to perform some tutorial hunting on the island instead of us chasing him down, since we already sort of do that later on when we first arrive to Havana. And in that time of you hunting, we could have seen Edward return back to Duncan and see that he's already died, and then everything else would have been the exact same from there. Okay, but there's still a question we haven't answered. How the hell did this guy become a master assassin? I think there are a few likely explanations. First, it might have been skill without any conviction. Duncan was pretty competent in combat at stealth, and the Assassin Brotherhood saw something in him, and that may have just been enough to earn promotions. Secondly, a weakened Brotherhood. During this era, the assassins were stretched thin, making it a lot more likely to get promoted. Well, very quickly, that is. I actually do remember some missions in Black Flag when you play as Edward, when you first infiltrate the Assassin Brotherhood and you go to their hideout, and you essentially have to perform some stealth. And these assassins are pretty clueless. They're supposed to be guards, but you can get around them pretty easily. And you're not even really an assassin at this point, you're just a pirate. So yeah, they were definitely weak. And finally, missed warning signs. Duncan's ambition, temper, and growing resentment were all there. They just weren't taken seriously by the Brotherhood. And none of this excuses his behavior, but it does explain how someone like Duncan slipped right through the cracks. Duncan Walpole isn't some tragic character. He's a reminder that the Assassin Order isn't immune to failure. Titles can be misjudged, loyalty can be assumed, and belief in the creed can't be measured by rank alone. For somebody meant to represent the best of the Brotherhood, Duncan ultimately represented its major blind spots. So the next time you hear the title Master Assassin, I think it's worth remembering Duncan Walpole. Skilled, trusted, and yet completely unworthy of the rank. Well, that's that. If you guys enjoyed this fun little video, please consider subscribing and supporting this channel. Your support means everything to me. And let me know in the comments, do you think they should keep Duncan's story as is in the remake? Well, whenever we do get that. Or do you think they should change it up just a little bit to, I guess, save Duncan's reputation just a little bit? This has been Hassassini here, and I hope I'll see you all in the next one.